Let's dive deep into the Reno Benteen defense site, one of the rawest, most gripping chapters from the Battle of the Little Bighorn. This is the ground where Major Marcus Reno and Captain Frederick Benteen made their desperate stand, turning a potential disaster into a two-day siege that kept their men alive against overwhelming odds. It's named after these two officers, and trust me, they're a pair of real characters, flawed, human, and pivotal to how this all went down. First off, Major Marcus Reno. Now he's got a solid track record from the Civil War. He earned brevet promotions, those honorary ranks that came with battlefield heroics, and he was no slouch in combat. But life hit him hard in 1874 when his wife passed away, leaving him to raise their teenage son on his own. The grief and the pressure started wearing on him. He turned to the bottle pretty heavily, and that isolation really set in. Before long, he'd alienated himself from most of the other officers in the 7th Cavalry. It was like he was drifting in his own world, and that didn't exactly set him up for leadership glory here at Little Bighorn. Then you've got Captain Frederick Benteen, another one with a backstory that reads like a novel. Born in Virginia to a father who was all in on the Confederacy, Benteen made a gutsy call when the Civil War broke out. He enlisted with the Union Army instead. That decision didn't sit well with his family at all. Talk about burning bridges. Throughout the war, he carried this nagging sense that his Southern roots were always going to be a mark against him. It bred a real chip on his shoulder, the kind that made him hyper-aware of slights. Like a lot of those Civil War vets who ended up out west, he had a massive ego, thrived on drama, and loved dishing out the trash talk. He had nicknames for just about every officer, and he wasn't shy about throwing shade. For Benteen, the Little Bighorn fight wasn't just a battle, it was going to make or break his entire legacy. Fast forward to that fateful afternoon on June 25th, 1876. Major Reno launches his attack on what turns out to be this enormous Native American village along the Little Bighorn River. It goes south in a hurry, his charge falters, and his men are forced into a chaotic retreat back across the water. One of the very first to fall on the east side is Lieutenant Benjamin Hodgson. He's hit right by the riverbank, but a quick-thinking trooper grabs him by the stirrup and hauls him the rest of the way across. Sadly, Hodgson doesn't make it. They find his body on the far bank. If you visit the site today, his marker stands out there all alone, isolated against the prairie, a haunting little reminder of how fast things unraveled. As Reno's battered survivors push up the bluffs, scrambling through the ravines to reach higher ground, most of the men funnel into the southernmost draw for cover. But not everyone. A few troopers take different paths, and that costs them. Look out across those bluffs today, and you'll spot a couple of markers in draws just north of the main one. One belongs to James D. Wolfe, one of the 7th Cavalry's 3 surgeons. He chose a riskier route, and it got him killed. Brutal lesson in the fog of war. Up on the bluffs as Reno's men start to consolidate, catching their breath, piecing together the nightmare. They're joined by Benteen's battalion. Benteen had been riding hard after receiving a frantic note from Custer himself. "Big village, come quick, bring the packs." It was a plea for ammo and support. Reno shows him the message, then barks the order. "Halt your command. I've lost half my men." Benteen obeys without hesitation. And from there, aside from a quick scouting push we'll get into in another video, Benteen throws himself into shaping the defensive perimeter that would be their lifeline for the next 36 hours. The spot Benteen picks is a smart one, but far from perfect. It's got some elevated ridges for better sight lines, but plenty of low spots that leave them wide open to enemy fire, especially from a nasty rise to the north that the men soon nickname Sharpshooter Ridge. His own Company H digs in along the southern ridge, right where the pressure would be fiercest. Over on the west, overlooking the bluffs and guarding the precious pack train, Company B takes position. The northern flank falls to Companies Weary, D, and K. Then there's Lieutenant George Wallace in charge of Company G. He reports in grimly, "I don't have a company anymore, just 3 men left." Benteen, unflinching, tells him, "Occupy your sector anyway. Take those 3. And Wallace does it, holding that thin line like a boss. Company A covers the eastern side, completing the rough circle. Right in the middle sits this shallow depression, a natural bowl that becomes the heart of the chaos. All the horses, mules, and pack animals get herded in there for whatever cover it offers. And smack in the center, the field hospital, run by the lone surviving surgeon, Dr. Henry Porter. He's got his hands full with the wounded, working under a flimsy little tent fly that's constantly getting shredded by bullets. Animals and men alike are dropping around him. It's a slaughter pen, not a safe haven. Porter's a legend in his own right, stitching and saving lives while lead flies everywhere. The troopers settle in for the long haul, but the first evening is pure hell. Through the rest of June 25th, 12 men are killed outright in the perimeter, with another 20 wounded. The officers look around and realize this attrition rate is suicide. They'll be wiped out by morning if it keeps up. So they start digging like mad. Remember, this is a cavalry outfit. They didn't pack shovels or spades. These guys are improvising with tin cups, pocket knives, even their bare hands clawing at the hard prairie soil. They drag over crates, sacks of coffee beans, sides of bacon, anything to build up breastworks and rifle pits. It's gritty, desperate work. Everyone's at it, except Captain Benteen. He's got this optimistic hunch that with nightfall, the native village will pack up and melt away into the hills, leaving them in the clear. So he lets his exhausted men grab some shut-eye. These troopers had been in the saddle for nearly 2 straight days, fighting a brutal engagement. They're running on fumes. Benteen himself is wiped out, but he prioritizes their rest over fortifications. The rest of the battalion? They toil through the darkness, shoring up every inch of their lines. Dawn on the 26th breaks, and the fight reignites right where it left off. Snipers start picking them off again, and the men are burrowing into the dirt for their lives. By all accounts, Benteen is the absolute rock star here. He's everywhere, striding the lines, rallying the troops, even catching a quick nap when a bullet clips the heel right off his boot. The stories from survivors paint him as this larger-than-life figure, inspiring courage when it was in short supply. Reno, on the other hand, his performance throughout this siege, and honestly the whole battle, doesn't do him any favors. He comes across as hesitant, almost detached, at a time when bold leadership was everything. But Benteen's sector, Company H on the south, takes the worst of it. Because they hadn't fortified overnight, his men are getting whittled down fast. If that line buckles, the whole perimeter collapses, and it's over for everyone. Benteen sees it coming and doesn't hesitate. He turns to Reno. "I'm taking Company M and charging south." They mount up, thunder down on the warriors pressing in close, launching arrows, hurling rocks and dirt clods, and drive them back in a fierce counterattack. That bold move relieves the pressure on the southern flank, buying them precious time. A couple of hours later, the northern companies pull off a similar charge, and together these actions are what keeps the defense from crumbling. Then comes the water crisis, maybe the most critical of all. With no supplies and the wounded suffering terribly, officers call for volunteers. 4 men step forward, volunteering to act as decoys and sharpshooters, drawing enemy fire to cover the water runs. Others grab canteens, pots, pans, whatever they can carry, and sprint down Water Carrier's ravine to the river below. They fill up as much as possible under a hail of bullets. Several of those brave souls earn the Medal of Honor for their heroism, and without them, the command might have died of thirst before the enemy could finish the job. By the afternoon of June 26th, the tide finally turns. The massive native village starts breaking camp, packing up and moving south, right toward the approaching relief columns led by General Alfred Terry and Colonel John Gibbon. As they go, they set the prairie ablaze, probably to obscure their movements and deny the soldiers any easy pursuit. From their hilltop vantage, these hardened Civil War veterans stare out in stunned silence. They're used to gauging the size of armies from afar. But this, thousands upon thousands, warriors, women, children, lodges stretching as far as the eye could see. It was likely one of the largest Native American encampments in North American history. A few troopers in their later accounts admit they couldn't hold back. They let out 3 rousing cheers for the Indians. Warriors honoring warriors, pure and simple, amid the smoke and chaos. Through it all, one question haunts every man on that bluff. Where the hell is Custer? Some speculate he's holed up on a nearby hill, fighting his own desperate battle. Others cling to the hope that he broke through and linked up with Terry's forces. But there's zero word. No scouts, no signals, nothing. The uncertainty gnaws at them. Finally, on the morning of June 27th, the relief arrives and the awful truth drops like a hammer. Custer and all 210 men with him are dead, wiped out on a ridge a few miles north. It blows their minds. These survivors had thought their grueling stand was the heart of the fight, the main event. Turns out it was the sideshow, the one history would remember less. If this story of grit, leadership, and survival has you hooked on the Little Bighorn saga, I've got plenty more where that came from. Head over to the channel for the full playlist. I've got deep dives on every angle of the battle. And if this video sparks something for you, hit that comment section and let me know what stood out. Your thoughts always make these discussions better.